And this mission matters for lots of reasons, but today's focus is the work that we have the privilege of being a part of internationally through our partner venture. And that's why I had Paul Hurckman join today. But just let me say, for like a small lead in, is this idea came up: what if we bike 100 miles on behalf of the fatherless? My first call was Paul Hurckman saying, is this a good idea or bad idea? And I was like, should we do 50 miles or 100 miles? I think I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was just out of town when we had the first chat about this. And he not only said, good idea, go after it, but he's like, how can I help? How can I help? How can we help? And venture has helped this movement go from a crazy idea to what it is today. Venture has helped all along the way, every single part of the way. They're not at all just a beneficiary that does great work that we're happy to, thrilled to fund, but they've helped build this movement from many areas that I can't even get into today, because it's so complex, building a movement of men who are cycling on behalf of the fatherless. And Paul, thank you for your role in this. Jeremy's on the call today. Thank you for kind of the logistics, operations, management side of developing the resources that make these things happen. So a huge gratitude. But now I really want to just get into, Paul, you helping us understand how does what we're doing here in the United States, biking 100 miles, how is it impacting, and how is it helpful, and how is venture using the funds that we raise?
To say thank you seems like an understatement. Well, it is an understatement. I wish that there was a whole side dictionary that has, hey, I'm really meaning this, as opposed to what we just say when you're supposed to say it. I feel it sometimes when you get on a stage, or sometimes when you see a friend that you're like, whatever, and you just go through the motions. So I'm going to try to stop and then re-say it again, not going through the motions. Thank you. It's not a small thing to ride 100 miles. Maybe for some of you, you love doing that, like Terry, which I'm going to learn some video skills from Terry, because I need that sepia / Italian stallion look you got going on down there. But genuinely, to those of you who I know on this call who have been invested in Fathers for the Fatherless and even venture, thank you. To the folks that I haven't met in person, thank you. So in the area where we serve, and venture specifically serves in tough places, least reached, least resourced, and what we mean by that as a faith-based organization, places where they haven't heard about the gospel. And when we talk about the gospel, what we're talking about is a design where everybody can flourish. And in a call like this, we all represent multiple different places on a spiritual journey. And so I'm respectful of that. But I just deeply believe in the words of the unruly rabbi on the side of a mountain that invites us to a system where everybody can thrive, and then tells us to pay attention to the marginalized. So that's where we as an organization put our emphasis: least reached and least resourced. So that's refugee crisis, extreme poverty, human trafficking, and then persecution of belief. And so in one of the regions, there has been mass instability, military coups, and what's happened in these areas is, because of those things, it's literally become illegal to help some marginalized communities. There are places in the countries where we serve that the UN has already declared it ethnic genocide. And because it's been illegal, we've had 4 of our partners that lost their life this year. So even before I tell any other stories, when you're on your bike and when parts of your body that we don't talk about from a stage hurt, we're doing this alongside of the tenacity of people that are literally giving their lives, both to help physical needs and then also to share the gospel. And so we follow the words and the leading of the unruly rabbi that tells us to pay special attention to the widow, the orphan, the impoverished, as well as the refugee. And specifically in partnering with y'all, we're talking about the orphans. We're talking about people who have lost one or both children. We're talking about people that maybe their parents were killed because of violence, ethnic genocide, war, conflict, or maybe they were forced away from their family because of that. And one of the primary ways where we respond and help immediately is with the bridge of food. And that food is in partnership with Feed My Starving Children, which we have an incredible collaborative approach with. And so as you're riding every mile, you all are raising money for these kids who are in really deplorable situations. And the tendency for myself and for orgs like myself is to tell our best stories. But I don't want to tell our best stories. I was actually talking to Jeremy. I'm going to tell you the most recent stories. And I'm going to go fast because this was like today I got an email. In this email, there was a picture of this toddler, and there was 4 pictures of this toddler, and the lesions on this toddler's skin, not only were they gross to look at, but as I was looking at it, and you just stare and you think, if you have a child, or if you have like 79 like Alex, all girls, but you just think how difficult that must be for the child to even move. I mean, the lesions were on the palm and on the whatever the palm of the foot is called. But so really keeping from movement. And then I scrolled down and it said, after months of the food that you all provided, I mean, the child's skin was beautiful. You know, everybody on this call, except for maybe Terry Lieski, who has really creamy skin, we'd all be very, very jealous. And I think about what that means for that child. The next email that I got yesterday, and this email showed a child, and it said that it had this rare blood disease. Both the child I just talked about and this child going to clinics every week or every month, nobody being able to figure this thing out, has to have blood transfusions every single month. And after 3 to 6 months, I couldn't quite understand the email, but between 3 and 6 months of the food that you all are sacrificing for, hasn't had blood transfusion for 6 months. The medicine couldn't figure it out. I believe in medicine, I believe in science, I believe in all those things, but you know what I believe in even more? The power of a group of people to respond to the design that God already has that says, pay attention to the marginalized and be a part of it. And so as you are out there, whether you ride in the rain or the heat, whether it gets difficult when you have to get up early, but there's a child that doesn't have to get a full body blood diffusion. There was another one, it was a 12-year-old boy, polio. I had to Google if polio even exists in our country. Had polio 12 years, starts eating the meals, and I see pictures of 2 things. First of all, of the boy up on crutches, and secondly, of him standing and walking with crutches. And they believe that he's going to continue if he keeps eating the meals. And honestly, if y'all keep riding, that he's going to walk without crutches. And again, I just ladder back to, I got 5 kids. If somebody would come alongside and do whatever they could do to get my kid from not being able to walk to being able to run, that is a miracle, like literally the paraplegic walking. Now here's my practice transition. And my next email was literally a grown man who is a paraplegic who got the food. So not only does the food, we don't just only give it to children, although we focus on that with y'all, but there was a paraplegic man who used the food and went from not being able to walk to walking, and the line was, and he walked to church. And as an organization that is anchored in the gospel, there's just nothing more beautiful as you pedal with every stroke. If pedal turns into money, turns into meals, turns into people getting up off their mat and walking. Like, I don't know if you grew up in church, but I grew up in church reading about those stories from the book, and that we get to be a part of it. I will end with one, and then I'll just turn it back over to you, Jeff. This one is not this week, but I have a picture on my computer, and it is of a woman, and there are 2 cows, and it means everything to me because the woman is the widow C, and the widow C lost her husband this year, was murdered for delivering the meals that you are peddling and raising money for. And when we asked what we could do to help, she said, could you just get me 2 cows? If you get me 2 cows, I can take care of my 8 kids as a widow, and I will keep sharing the gospel. That's a good conversion ratio to me. She lost her husband. These 8 kids lost their dad. And she's like, hey, 2 cows. And I just say that because it's important to me that we encapsulate the totality of the work. And that is that the work starts from the words of the unruly rabbi, that it flows through us, but very quickly we are not the heroes. It is our partners that are the heroes. And our job is to match the tenacity. Our job is not selfies in spandex, although people, well, I can't see anybody from here down, so maybe some of you don't selfie in spandex, but we like to do that. Hey, look at me, do it, and then point to the mutual goal that we all have, and that is that the lame walk, that people with incurable blood diseases and skin diseases are healed, and that somehow we provide at least access for them to walk towards a life that offers hope, not only for them, but for their community.
Paul, thank you for sharing this snippet of recent instead of the highlight reel of the last 10 years. I see those images because I get the weekly updates, or sometimes multiple a week, of this is the hard, and this is look what God is doing. So thank you for those. I think it's for some of us, though, just to help give a flyover and a reminder of those three concentric circles of the least reached that don't know about Jesus, the hardest places as far as like not having food or being war stricken or this, and then the least money going. Can you help explain those three one more time, and just give us a flyover of how many years has Venture been serving in these areas?
Yeah, that's really great. So there's a lot of different ways you'll hear Venture talk, but if you can just think of tough places, and I'm actually going to give you 3 U's, okay? Mm-hmm. So unreached as a faith-based organization, places where less than 2% have heard of this great design where they can thrive through the kingdom. That's unreached. Under-resourced, where we serve, less than 1% of all global Christian giving goes. And what's crazy, if you can look at this circle, half of the global population lives inside of the circle where we serve, and yet only 1% of all Christian giving. So it's a very strategic between unreached and under-resourced. And then that last one is unsafe. So we are specifically going to places where, like I said, our partners are literally dying. Kids are literally having school in a ditch that they dig to keep them safe from bombs and guns. The parents literally drop them in a hole. And that's where they are getting educated. These are places that are already, they're pushed off of their villages, and landmines are put around so they can never come back. And if you know me, and some of you do, some of you don't, but I try very, very hard not to do hyperbole, because I think that would be not only disingenuous, but it would dishonor the true nature of the difficulty and the danger of our partners. And so what it looks like to match that tenacity. Jeff, your last question was how long? It's really a 2-part answer. The first 3 guys that got on a bike, that heard about a need in an area, and they got on a bike, and because you guys are cyclists, you'll know how stupid and ill-equipped they were. One of the guys brought the Lord of the Rings hardbound edition on his bike, because he's like, what else am I going to do when I don't bike? I'm going to read. And anyway, they had one guy sold his car. That actually happened almost 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. We've been a 501c3 in our current construct over the last 10 years. So over the last 10 years is we've raised about over $45 million, provided 50 million meals. You guys are one of the greatest parts of that. Rescued 1,000 girls, started 1,000 agri-entrepreneurial initiatives. That's just fancy for farming. And then part of our faith methodology is responding to the urgent and community development with church planting. In the last 4 years, our partners have planted 4,000 churches.
My hope was to stir all of us up to go like a little more like awareness for prayerfulness, but also on the fundraising side. We had, I believe it was 35 of our team members last year raised over $2,500. They went way beyond the minimum goal that we set for fundraising because of a deep care and passion for the work that you guys lead, that Venture leads, that we get to lead through Venture. And I did want to let you guys know the under-resourced part that Paul just talked about. The more that I've learned, in our board and like the team leading this movement has learned about the impact of the dollars raised for globally through Venture, we actually prayerfully made a 2-year commitment to turn the dial of our giving with Fathers for the Fatherless. It's been 50-50 for the past 4 years. 50% stays local, 50% goes global. And I want you guys to know this. 75% of our fundraising is going to go global through venture over the next 2 years. So we don't know long term, we don't know what God's going to do as far as partners and where dollars are going to go, but we just know that there is a massive opportunity and the impact is so huge. And as we've seen the generosity increase, we've actually seen huge checks be given to our local partners, and we'll continue to be able to give huge donation checks to our local partners as we keep growing. But we just wanted to turn that dial of intentionality globally because of the great need. So I want you guys to know about that. We're going to open it up for questions for about 5 or 10 minutes. Anyone can come off mute and ask a question.
Because you guys are not only giving and using your physical training and physical sacrifice, but you're also using your social capital to raise money. Please know that 100% of funds that come to venture goes right through. That's part of our business model. So we are partnering together. None of what you raise or personally give goes to my 2024 Escalade with spinners. I don't even know if spinners are a thing. It's just, we partner together. It's easy for me to talk about it because this is just a partnership. We're just doing this thing together.
Last year, I wanted to raise more. I shared a lot. Other than just like praying over it, any other like things that anyone has done that really helped them kind of push the bar with raising support for this? Conversations that you had with coworkers or peers?
Jeremy probably has a bunch because he works with a lot of our movements. Jeremy, when he sold his home, used part of the profits and use that in like a matching and incentivizing. And I'm almost going to close my eyes so nobody thinks I'm calling them out. But Jeff, when you were like 30 plus of our people gave 2,500, my first thought was everybody on this call could write a check for 25. I know you'd think you can't, but we could if it was important enough. Like if I said, hey, find 2,500 bucks and you get my 24 Escalade, you'd be like, yeah, I can figure that out. And so I think it starts with digging deep and going, especially if you're a second or third year, and it starts getting old, going, here's how I'm doubling down. Here's what I'm doing, and I'm going to match it.
Yeah, I could add to that. David actually put a great thing in there about company matches. That's always really great. Even some banks, I know, like I think it's Thrivent sometimes does matches too. I think the biggest piece is like there's no one strategy that is like the way to do it. And I think it's just knowing who your network is and what's going to resonate the most with them. That's really going to help you fundraise the most effectively. My best fundraiser actually did it almost exclusively on social media. But if I would have set aside more time, I think I could have raised more had I actually spent or done the work to do more personal asks with people. Because like looking back at my donor list, I know that there were people that weren't on there that if I would have actually picked up the phone and called them, they totally would have given also. So I think just knowing, and even like making a list of people that are really close to you who would give if you ask because they care about you and what you're passionate about, and then you can tie it back to the cause. Even just setting aside, a certain amount of time every week to be like, this is the time I'm going to focus on fundraising, and being really intentional and putting together a good plan. Like I loved what Jeff did last year with his 10 days, just one thing every day for 10 days. And he had a really successful fundraiser with that. And so I think just sitting down to strategize what's going to work best with your network, and also with the time that you have, whether that's, hey, I'm going to do the long haul fundraiser, I'm going to spend the next 3 months talking about it or using springboards to that, or like Jeff did the fast and the furious and super intentional over 10 days. Both can be really successful.
We've been I think fans and cheerleaders from the sidelines for venture for a number of years, and had an opportunity to see kind of behind the curtain, and I just love, they're the real deal. That's when you work in a business and you want to partner with companies, with nonprofits that share your values. I can't speak highly enough about the work that Venture does and as an extension of that, the work that Jeff does through Fathers for the Fatherless, those are the proud moments that we get to look at from a business perspective and say, the why, always go back to the why. Why are we in business? Well, we build relationships and we build equipment, but we're not here to do that. That's just the vehicle that provides an opportunity for us to have an impact. And when you do step into that, you want to make sure that you're partnering with the right people. And never has there been a question about the integrity or the work or financial responsibility of the companies or the nonprofits that you work with in these two. So it just thrills me to say that I get to associate myself with you guys. That's truly where my heart is at. And I know I speak with the people that I work with as well with how we view both those organizations. So thank you very much for doing that and being a company, being nonprofits on a mission and staying true to that and basing all of that in scripture and what God desires from us. So thank you for doing that. One of the things about social media, I am not gifted in the way a lot of people are in that, but I mean, I watched Taylor Doolittle last year. He's just a natural. And that guy has got charisma, and then he's got some resources around him that capture that to tell the story. Not only the story of the people that he's helping, but the why. Why is he helping? Why does he feel like he's called to make a difference? And those kinds of things, and relating it and putting it on whatever level you're at, I think makes the biggest difference. When people can capture and see that you're passionate about something, they're willing to walk with you and jump in and put their support behind you. So it's just a matter of being vulnerable and telling your story and I guess, and putting the goal out in front of them. So
thank you for that encouragement and that ad, Terry. Appreciate you. I'm going to let you guys go. I usually kick you guys off at 25 minutes, and we've gone 28. Thank you for being a part, though. And this is cool because I'll take the video of the core of what Paul shared and get it out to the rest of our team. So you guys are amazing. See you next week.